Well, g'day everybody and welcome back to the channel. We've got a little bit of a different episode for you today. Tell them what we're doing, Al.
This week we're looking at budgets.
We certainly are. So go and get yourself a cold drink, get your feet up for probably about 30 minutes on this one. It's a little bit of talking to do. Anyway, we'll meet you after the trailer. Hi, I'm Steve.
And I'm Alison.
We decided a couple of years ago that we'd work hard and save all of our money and start living life on our own terms.
So we bought a caravan and hit the road on a trip for two all around Australia.
So why not come and join us every week for our adventures? Okay, well, as we said in the intro, today is all about our travelling budget. We did wait a long time to put this episode on because in about 3 days' time, what are we celebrating now?
1 year on the road.
That's right, and we thought it would be better to give you a budget type episode after we had a full year of data that we'd collected on everything that we've spent money on from before we left home to today.
Yes.
And you'll just have to excuse us. In today's video, you are going to hear a couple of jets in the background. We're very close to Williamtown at the moment, and there is fighter jets everywhere here, but it's really cool to go and see if you ever come down here and have a look. So we'll go with there. So what we thought we'd talk about today is not only the things that we spend on the road, but the sorts of things that we've done in preparation to get on the road.
Yes.
Yeah, so some of those things obviously include, and I'm sure you're doing right now, because just because you're watching this video, is you're doing a little bit of research.
Yes, research is good and very important. Thinking about your current spending habits and your current type of expenses that really don't go away.
Yeah, and the type of travel that you want to do when you come out and you hit the road. And for us, it was always going to be full time on the road. So we live and work on the road full time, if you've never watched our channel before.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. So before we left, we started to do some research and we went to the normal researching type areas that most people would access. So
through the normal avenues. So you look at YouTube, you look at people who do travel because that's a bit more realistic. You look at Google and you Google for information on traveling and budgets. And there's always, I guess, people who are putting out blogs or articles. You know, I know we're part of RACQ. They do their monthly booklet out with all information, and sometimes they do it on people who travel and things to consider and dollars.
That's right, and the first thing you're going to notice is everybody spends a different amount of money. They have different wants and needs when they travel on the road, but the one thing that most will believe that you spend about $1 for every kilometre that you drive when you travel around Australia. Yes. Some people recently have been saying things like it's $2 and even $3, but once again that's budget dependent. We're going to find out what it was for us at the end of this episode. Yes. So we'll show you how much it actually cost us per kilometre to drive. Just so you know, we've done 33,000 kilometres so far in our big lap, and we've only just done Queensland and a little bit of New South Wales, so there's so much to see.
Lots to see,
as
and I'm looking forward to it.
So based on the logic of $1 per kilometre, if the average lap is about 50,000 Ks in travelling total, by the time you've done all your sightseeing and things like that, you'd probably want to start your lap with about $50,000 in the bank. We started the lap with
just under $4,000, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah, we had a few extra expenses before we left home.
We certainly did, but if you don't go, you'll never go. So we decided this is the day that we leave and we go. And from that we decided, and we always knew this, we were going to work on the road anyway.
Yes, we were never in a position to not work, so it was always going to be something we had to do. You know, you can stop and work along the way. For me, I could also do a little bit of work from the van road. Steve's renewed his forklift license and we're looking at doing the RSA, so we don't necessarily want to do what we did when we were at home. We're happy to do anything and kind of everything, give everything a go, and get a whole lot of different experiences. Okay,
but once again, that's up to you. If you just want to save your money and not work 1 minute when you're on the road, get out there and enjoy it, because there's plenty to enjoy.
Yes.
Yep.
Definitely.
All right. Things that we did just to get ourselves prepared to live on the road, we just done some simple things. So we were a dual wage, and we decided straight away when we had to save for the caravan and stuff, we just dropped to one wage. So I think we lived off Ali's wage, we banked mine. I was a night filler at Woolworths, so I was earning a little bit of money, but not a lot of money, but it was certainly enough to get us going,
yes.
but it gave us some good discipline for living on small amounts of money every week, didn't it? And we also had to support our mortgage at the same time during that. So
that's correct.
Yeah, I think we cut back some niceties in life and just thought the end goal is to get out on the road and start travelling.
Yes,
and that's what it was.
That's it. That was the driving force, is that we wanted to get out and get travelling.
We accounted for every cent that we spent. So Alison is relentless at this. Every time I buy something, Steve, where's the receipt? Steve, where's the receipt? She'd stick it all into this thing and work it all out and then tell me where I was wasting money or we were wasting money. Because it disappears down the drain very, very quickly. Just like, I'll have a cup of coffee now, or I'll shoot over here and do that, and all of a sudden, oh, no more money. So you had to be very, very disciplined in our approach. But it's really helped us now we've come on the road, hasn't it?
It has, yes.
When we were purchasing things to go on the road, and this is the one thing I am going to suggest very strongly, is do your research. Just because an influencer jumps on YouTube and says, buy this, you need to buy this, you don't need to buy this. Go out, determine what it is that you want, determine what it is that you actually need. Go out, feel it, touch it. Make sure it's going to work for you. There's nothing like carting 40 kilos of crap around that you never ever touch, all right? So that's certainly something to be mindful of. But when we did need to make purchases, we targeted those times of the year when you can get a good sale. And they're around Boxing Day,
Easter, Father's Day, good for tools. Easter's good for camping. Boxing Day, you know, good for homeware types of stuff. So if you want to fit out in your van. So yeah, we made that list, and then we vetted that list as we went because we realised we didn't need it all. And
exactly.
Just search for the sales as they came through. Exactly.
And we're like anyone else. You buy a brand new van, you want to put some brand new gear in. So we did buy new sheets and all those sorts of things before we went away.
We were due for new sheets anyway.
We were. We saved for everything. We paid everything up front. We didn't have anything on like pay now, buy later, or whatever it is, the other way around.
I think it's
buy now, pay later. We've done those sorts of things. Nothing went on to credit. We didn't take out loans or any of those sorts of things as we went along. And as we got closer to our start date, we started to give each other gifts that were orientated towards the trip, rather than frivolous things which would end up in a storage block under our house.
Yes, it seemed impractical to do that, to put it back into storage. So I knew Steve was interested in doing a little bit of filming, so I got him a GoPro again when it was on sale, and the drone for Christmas / birthday again when it was on sale before Christmas. So that's been a good gift, and he uses them all the time.
I do. I certainly use them every day, and in return I gave Alison a Yeti mug.
It's good. Yeah, I didn't think we'd enjoy a Yeti mug, but it's been quite handy, to be honest.
It has. They knock about the cooler being hot or cold when you're driving around.
Yes.
They're pretty good for the old Scotch and Coke in the afternoon, I can assure you of that. Rightio. Things that we didn't do. The one thing that we didn't do, we decided on this right from day one, is we're never ever selling the house.
No. I was very against selling a house. For me, it was a case of if I needed to or I wanted to stop travelling, and when I say I do mean both of us, life happens, that we did have a home base to come back to, because as everyone knows, it's very difficult to get back into the market, whether you're going to buy and or rent these days. It's just so tough. So we had that security. We've
met people on the road, I don't think we'd find this, but we've met people on the road who sold everything. They sold their houses, their worldly belongings, almost the clothes off their back, to purchase themselves, you know, a $500,000 Caravan and $1 million car and all these things so they can drive around Australia. They've been 3 months on the road and they absolutely hate it, and all they want to do is sell it all and go back to their original life. So it's definitely a case of try before you buy. This is a huge investment and it's a huge life change. So you need to make sure that it's going to be good for you before you go. So
and when we came to storing our items, things that don't store well, so TVs, fridges, washing machines, we did sell those sorts of things, and things that are all laying around the house that we weren't going to utilise probably when we came back, we also sold them. We did pop the money away, some of the money, certainly for the white goods, away in the bank account, and when we get back into regular life and we have to buy those things, we'll use that money to help purchase those new items.
Yes. All right, and the one thing that we decided that we would never do is borrow any money for any of the things that we're going to do. So we never went to the bank and asked for a loan, but we have met people who have gone and borrowed tens of thousands of dollars just to spend as they're spending money as they travel around. And the last thing you want to do when you're towing a caravan around the country is tow a debt around with you at the same time, because it's not going to lead to good conversations in your caravan sometimes, particularly when your funds are getting low. So yeah, own everything before you go, and it'll just make your trip so much easier.
Yes.
All right, and that comes to our trip. So after we'd gone through all that process in preparing ourselves and saving our money, we decided there was a few things that we needed to think about, and this is the thing that we found hardest to get information on, because everybody sweeps over it. They go, oh, that's someone else's cost, or this is going to be different for you, but it's not the case. The case is that everybody's going to have their insurances, they're going to have their car regos, servicing fees for your vehicle, you might need to stick tyres on, and you need to have a little bit of a bank balance just in case you get yourself in the poop and you need to get out of the poop.
I think it's certainly, that needs to be part of your budget, but
yes.
So it's difficult to find info on that one.
Definitely. So what we're going to call that for us is our zero line. How much money did we need in the bank as a base to cover all of those things before we drove out of our driveway? And our zero line to cover all of those things is about $12,000.
Yes, yeah, roughly about 10 to 12.
Yeah, and that'll cover it. We do about 20 to 30,000 Ks in a year. That means I need to service the car at least 3 times, and I need to service the Caravan at least 3 times in that period. They're $500 a pop. That's what, $3,000 right there.
Yes. Just
in servicing. Then we've got our regos, our insurances, and Caravan insurance is not cheap.
No, it is not.
All right, so it's something you need to think about there. Tyres, we drive so many miles, we use tyres in our car, about $500 a corner. Then I've got the Caravan tyres as well, so we keep the money there for that as well.
Yes, it's something to definitely keep into your consideration with that. And we also had RACQ, the ultimate care, so that will cover the car and the Caravan. If something was to happen, they will come and help us.
Yeah, and that was only for a few $100 a year, so that was great.
Yeah, it's $300 now, so yes, but it's something to consider into your budgets.
It is. So at the end of today's episode, I'm going to tell you how much money we spent just since we drove out of the driveway, and then after that I'll tell you, including that zero money, that $12,000, how much money we've spent since we drove out of our driveway to see the two figures.
Yes.
Okay. And then, of course, that just leads to life on the road, and then the expenses start to incur. But we've broken the expenses into just 5 main groups, and I'll probably talk about the dearest one first, and for us, that's our fuel.
Yes, it is.
It is. So I'm just going to go through, first of all, let's have a talk about how much money we've spent on fuel now. So what was our total spend on fuel so far?
So far has been $10,808.12.
So for us, that's a weekly spend of about $212 at an average price of fuel of about $2.01. Now, when we left home, or when we first started to plan for the trip, we planned $1.50 as the absolute dearest fuel we pay, because at the time fuel was like $1.
Yeah, it was much less.
It was really, really cheap, and we looked all over the place to see, you know, what's the average price, and the dearest I think we could find was somewhere out in Central Australia for $1.70, and we couldn't believe the price of it. Yeah, and the day we drove out the driveway, it was like $2.50. So they're the things you need to punch and roll and just give yourself a little bit of allowance. But what we have done is we've come up with some tips about what you can do to maybe save money on fuel when you're travelling around. So in no particular order, shop around.
It's just some of the obvious and common sense things. Shop around, look what is on offer in the town that you're in. Look to see if there's any deals. So Coles Express and your Woolworths garages sometimes offer the 4 cents off. But in saying that, that doesn't mean they're always the cheapest. That's
right. We the other things that we do is we talk to other travellers. They're a great source of information. They'll from time to time say there's a garage 20 kilometres up the street, mate, he's 20 cents cheaper than everybody else. That's always been a good source.
Yes.
And we always look ahead and we plan our fuel journey. So if we're going to drive from point A to point B, the other thing I look at is what fuel's available on the way. Do we need to fill up here? Do we need to fill up there? Can we wait a few more days? They're the sorts of things that we think about when we travel.
And do we need to maybe fill up the jerry can?
Yeah.
Is it cheaper to do it that way? Also, of course, the common thing is the fuel apps. So there's the state-based ones, as well as I use Petrol Spy as well, and I think you use...
I use Fuel Map. Yeah.
So, there's a variety of ways, but just sometimes shopping around or looking around can save you quite a bit of money.
Certainly.
And you might think it's only a few cents difference, but over the tank it can add up, and over the whole period of time that you're traveling, it can make a bigger difference to your hip pocket. And I always think it's better in your pocket than their pocket.
Exactly. So yeah, just a couple of other things. We slow down. We take about 10 k's off the speed when we're driving along roads. I don't do that on major highways. I only do that on outback roads. In fact, on some outback roads, just to enjoy the scenery where we're driving around, we've gone down to like 70 and just cruised along for an extra hour on our travel day. But sometimes it really pays off, not only in fuel savings, but just in the scenery and the things that you see when you go out. It's beautiful, particularly our outback. I love it. And just one more here. Don't fall into traps like the discounts. You know, when you walk into the garage and the console operator goes, oh, if you spend another $5 in store, we'll give you 4 cents off. You just need to quickly work that out in your head. You have to buy 125 litres to cover that $5 that you just spent. So when you get to litre 126, you get your first 4 cents off. So essentially what you're doing is you're giving them $5 to save 4 cents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're usually not a good deal.
They're not a good deal.
Don't take them.
Don't get stuck in for it. All right. Is that it for fuel, babe?
I think so.
All right. Next expense for us is our food.
Yes.
Before we left, Alice and I we've always had a food budget. We've always planned our meals and things that we're going to have. We, shop in a very similar way all of the time. And our food budget for a few years now has been $150 a week. And we couldn't see that was going to change when we went on the road. So we decided to bring that same budget onto the road. And I think for the most part, we've been able to stay pretty close to it. What's our total spend on food so far?
It's $8,020.52. So if we average that back out, it's $157.27 a week. So we haven't been too far off the mark of our weekly average budget for shopping.
No, we were really happy with that because to be within $7 of what we're paying for in town was great, because you've got to keep in mind that when you go out into the outback areas, you do pay a dearer price. I'll give you an example. We pay $4.50 for a carton of milk in town, and we pay $6.50 for a carton of milk out of town. But they're the sorts of things that we're buying quite regularly, milk and bread and stuff like that. So,
and you expect to pay a little bit more because they've got to cart the goods out to where they are usually.
Of course.
And
so just a couple of tips for saving money on food when you're out and about. We just buy in bulk in cheaper areas.
Yes.
So we have our staples in the caravan, and we just make sure that they're in here
all the time.
And pretty much what we're changing around or we're spending more money on is when we're buying fresh produce or milk and bread and just those sorts of perishables as we travel around. And that's how we support the local communities, because there's plenty of great food works and spas and IGAs. We've gone to some great shops.
And stalls along the way. You'll often see fruit and veg when you're out and about in the rural areas.
Oh yeah, the honesty boxes on the side of the road, the local markets in the towns on the weekend have great produce. Yeah,
it's good.
The other thing that we do is we have pre-cooked or frozen meals in our freezer. We keep those there for those I can't be bothered nights.
Yes, can be handy.
Yeah, if we've had a big day out travelling or we've been out sightseeing or whatever it is that we're doing for the day and we just couldn't be bothered cooking for the night, we all experience that. We just throw one of those in the microwave.
Yes.
It just tends to keep you out of the takeaway shop because it's just too convenient to take away.
Yes.
And if you're taking away a couple of times a week, that's adding you maybe $50-$60 every single time you do it. So you can end up another $200 on your travelling budget every week simply because you couldn't be bothered cooking.
Yeah. It does impact your budget, so be mindful of that.
It does. So that's pretty much what we do for our food. We just try to take what we've done at home onto the road. We have a very similar menu, and that's one thing I didn't mention. We do have menus. We menu plan as we drive.
We do try to. There's flexibility, but some sort of structure always helps with shopping and keeping you within your budget and what you're going to eat during the week as well.
Definitely. Yeah. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is accommodation. Now, depending on what sort of traveller you are, will depend on how much you spend on accommodation. So, three main types of accommodation is obviously your paid stuff like caravan parks, hip camps, farm stays, that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Low cost.
Low cost, like state national parks. Sorry, I was trying to get national parks out there.
Showgrounds, all that sort of stuff. Ringers Rest if you're ever up in Maroochydore, $10 a night. That's fantastic.
Yes, that's great.
You go there. And then of course there's free camping. That's what we try and do most of the time.
We do. Yeah.
In fact, some fool in this caravan said before we left, no, we're never going to a caravan park. We're not doing that. We won't be paying. We're always free camping. And the reality is, you just can't do it. You can't. You can't do it. You can have a crack. But from time to time you do need to plug in. The great equaliser with any solar system is the sun. Bloody sun. So if you don't get any sun for a couple of weeks,
no battery power. It impacts the battery power. Also, we found we were out in northern New South Wales in the summer, and you just need sometimes that aircon to run.
Yes. So when we were researching before we left. We thought, let's just have a look at how much the average cost is for these things, and I was very, very surprised to look at the average cost of a caravan park night stay throughout Australia. So some are cheap, some are dear. What do you reckon it might have been? How much a night?
I thought the average, I think somewhere between $50 and $60, and I thought I was being a bit generous.
But the reality is that the average price in 2023 was $76 a night. And if you stayed in a caravan park every night of the week, and we meet so many travellers who do because they absolutely love it, and why not?
Yes, it's good.
It's $27,700 just to take your caravan out of your driveway and park it in a caravan park.
That's based on the average of 76
That's
a night.
based on the average of 365 nights. You spent your year away in caravan
Because you do
parks.
find people with less value.
You do. So that's certainly something to factor into your budget if you're that type of traveller. Low-cost campers, like we spoke about, national parks, showgrounds, that sort of stuff, the average price is about $20 to $30 a night through our experience. And they're great. They always come with a toilet block or a shower or something along those lines.
They usually have something, yeah.
Yeah, they do. And they do gravitate a lot of people because that's a good cost for a lot of people when they're on the road.
Yes.
But even at that, that's still another $11,000 a year in travelling fees.
Yes.
So that's certainly something you need to be thinking of. We might do one of those a couple of nights every fortnight or every month, for sure.
We found a couple of low costs with water and or power, so that's been a real bonus.
We have, yeah, Morven.
Morven.
That was $10 for power and water.
Yeah.
That was great, just a donation camp, fantastic. And the other thing is obviously free camping. But if you're going to free camp, and we do about 80% of the time,
yes.
You just need to make sure you're set up so you enjoy the experience. So there's two ways that we really see to do it. You can either go out and buy yourself a generator, and or you can set yourself up with a good solar and battery system inside of your van.
That's true.
But that definitely comes at a cost. So, you know, for us, we have a system that suits us, but you don't get much change out of about $20,000 for a good solar system inside of your caravan, do you?
No, you don't.
Yeah, so certainly something to consider. So maybe in your first year, if you're not caravan parking, then you can afford to put in the solar stuff, and it sort of equates.
It does. That's what we chose to do, invest in the battery system, so we didn't have to pay those ongoing costs for accommodation.
All right, so keeping in mind that we invested in a battery system to put in our caravan, and we do free camp about 80% of the time. What was our total accommodation fee for this year?
Oh, actually, yes. I think, and to be honest, I'm thinking about it. I reckon it's more than 80%, but I'd have to run those figures, to be honest.
Yes.
So accommodation for us is $1,540.22.
$1,500 for the year, which is pretty good when you consider all of the fees that I gave you for camping and caravanning and stuff like that. That works out to be $29.50 a week, or about $4.20 per night on average for us over the period of a year, which is bloody fantastic.
Yes.
All right. Just while we're on camping, what was your favourite free camp?
Ooh, favourite free camp for me so far has been Notch Point, I would say.
Notch Point was beautiful. For me, I have a little one that I really enjoy. We only spent one night there. We were coming back through Caravan Gorge and it was on fire and we couldn't stop. So we just found one on Wiki Camps just up the road from Caravan. It was a place called Old Quarry, and it just looked out over the Caravan National Forest. There was a bushfire going at the time. We got this amazing sunset with the sun setting behind all the all the smoke and things like that. It was just a beautiful place to be.
Yes, it was. It was amazing, and I have enjoyed our outback experience as well. So
oh yeah,
it's
absolutely
tough to
great. All right, so we've come up with a couple of tips on how you might be able to save money on accommodation whilst you're travelling around.
Yes.
The first one, of course, is just free camp as much as possible if that's what you want to do.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, free camping's pretty good. You see some amazing places.
We do meet a lot of people who are quite scared, and it's one of the questions that we get most predominantly on our YouTube or through our socials.
Yeah, we get asked it a lot.
Are you bothered about free camping? And we aren't.
No, I think I think most people are the same. Everyone comes out at some point. Everyone kind of gives everyone a wave, says hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look at each other and you're like, yep, they seem normal.
Yeah, I like to go over and have a beer with someone, just have a talk, and everybody feels at ease because everybody now knows each other.
Yes, I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah. We had one incident in Bawarrina where it was a little bit weird for us, but we still stayed. It was a beautiful place.
It was lovely, but yes, just you've got to, use your head.
Yeah, I think as kids we watch too many of those American horror films and everybody thinks there's someone lurking in the bush, and that's not the case. It's not the case.
Definitely not.
All right, consider buying yourself a membership to caravan park chains.
Yes, we haven't. But there are some good deals out there with the different caravan options, and also, but what we've used when we've had to stay in caravans, we've looked for their deals, either pay for 3, stay for 4, or the midweek deals. There's still some great deals with the Caravan people.
It certainly is. You can buy yourself things like national parks passes, but that'll be state dependent, so you don't have them in Queensland, but they do have them in New South Wales. I think WA has something.
I think so.
And that does lower your costs a little bit if you're national park camping.
Yes.
We use apps to find camps like Wikicamps or Campedia, those sorts of things, just to research the campsites.
Yes. We speak to other travellers,
Yep.
and they're often great sources, especially if you're travelling in certain directions and they've come from those directions.
Yeah, and sometimes we just plan our stay too. So like we'll look at the place where we want to go and have a look at, or you know, visit, and that might be quite expensive. But we start looking for campsites that might be like say half an hour's drive away, so
Yes.
30 kilometres away, and ordinarily you can find something that's a half the price, even free.
That's
Just
true.
a little bit out of town for a short drive in. So
Yes.
yeah, sometimes it's well worth the trade-off, and you do find some fantastic places like that. And the last thing I just want to talk about is just beware of what looks like a good deal. So sometimes, and we've done this, the pub stays are great, and it's a great way to bring your patronage in, but you can really overspend on your budget when you get there, because you sit down, you relax, you have a meal. By the time we've had a couple of drinks, we're not escaping for less than about $80, and all of a sudden we're thinking the next day, hang on, that was more expensive than staying in the caravan park down the street. So
Yes.
yeah.
It can be handy if you're stopping and you don't want to cook. It can be a good option, but you got to think about, in terms of your budget, it's either got to come out of your accommodation budget or your food budget.
Yeah,
It's got to come somewhere.
It's got to come from somewhere, exactly.
Yeah.
Particularly not earning any money. Right, that's pretty much it for accommodation, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so for us it's always free camping, but you just got to determine what sort of camping suits you best and just go for it.
Very true.
All right, so next one I'll talk about is just our miscellaneous expenses. These are the expenses that we incur irregularly, regularly, but these are the ones that are controllable. These are the ones that we can cut back on, and we can really save some money in here. But just to give you an idea of the sorts of things that we put into our miscellaneous expenses, our dining out, alcohol, tours that we go on, clothing that we need to buy, medical expenses. We're quite shocked by our medical expenses this year, weren't we?
Very shocked by our medical expenses.
Yeah, it wasn't that there's any sickness or illness, but it was around glasses and that sort of stuff. We were both up. Yeah.
We have both got glasses. Both did our yearly check, and we do skin checks every year.
Yep.
And we both had our yearly GP checkups, which both sent us to specialists. And
Yes.
Specialists always cost a lot more than you anticipate.
That's right. So that was a little bit out of pocket for us, but it was with, you know, we were a little bit surprised, but we were able to handle it. Just our health and beauty type stuff, and we talk about, we was talking about like hairdressing and that sort of gear.
Yeah, you can maintain your hair most of the time, but at some point you probably do need to go and see that specialist. Being the hairdresser, I know for girls that's probably more true than maybe the boys. I don't know.
Yeah. Because we YouTube, sometimes we have a little bit of camera maintenance to do. We've had to spend a little bit of money on just, you know, getting cameras repaired or buying another part or whatever the case may be with that, and just our phone and internet charges.
Yes, yeah. So we both, neither of us are on a plan with our phones, so we were able to look at them and downgrade the plans to a lower value. We chose to take up Starlink as one of the better internet options, and so we've got both modern phones, so we can do Wi-Fi calling, so that's why we dropped our phone plans. I maintained the Telstra plan because we're told that Telstra has the best coverage within Australia. But we all know that's not always true. So yeah, so that was the trade-off. We're always looking for better options for the phone plans.
Yeah, and the other thing that we had in there is also just our one-off expenses. And this year, just bad timing, we both had to renew our driver's license, so that cost us like $400. So that's not an expense that we'll incur now for another 5 years.
That's true.
So that was good.
Something to think about when your license is coming up for renewal.
So what was our total spend on miscellaneous items this year?
It was this surprised me, $11,111. But as Steve alluded to, our medical was $1,955, so it was quite expensive. And normally we wouldn't be in that sort of area of expense for medicals, but it is something to consider, I think, if you have your glasses or need to see doctors.
Definitely, and as I said at the start of miscellaneous, it's controllable. So I can drink less grog, we can go out less to dinners. We're not going to give up on the tours. We love seeing around Australia, but you've also got to come out and you've got to have a great time. You've got to enjoy the lap that you do. So just get out there. Yeah, just do it.
Yes, it's definitely the variable cost that you can control.
All right, and the last thing I want to talk about is just our ongoing costs, just to the car and the Caravan, and we group these in for a few things here. Alson's glasses on off.
I can't see what I can't.
All right, so in this we just include things like our LPG cylinder refills, the chemicals that we buy for the loo, the nuts and bolts. I call it nuts and bolts, but the stuff that we have to go down and buy at Bunnings. Like, I'll give you an example. If you own a stone stopper, you need to go and buy yourself a piece of PVC pipe to support your stone stopper when you're driving around. So there's just those little indiscriminate spending throughout the course of the year, and of course, you need to keep your car and your Caravan in good nick, and a part of that is cleaning it. So you can't stop and wash your car and your Caravan everywhere, so we do need to visit car washes, and they can get quite expensive. So we won't spend a lot of time with this, but what was our total spend on the car and Caravan this year?
So it was $1,884, and as Steve said, it was the odd sods things, but we also were still adding a few little things to the Caravan at that time.
Yeah, we were, and occasionally you got to replace things like mats and stuff like that. But for us, that worked out to be about $37 a week.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
So that's everything that we spent on the road this year. So it's time for the grand totals, Al. So first one, how much money did we spend without our insurances when we were on the road?
Without the insurance, $36,424.
How much was that per week?
That came down to $714 a week.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
When we first started budgeting for our trip on the road, we thought $750 would be the right amount of money for us to travel as a couple around Australia and do the things that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that comes in just a little bit under. In fact, I thought it was going to be a little bit over.
I thought it was going to be over too.
So just having a quick look, based on that, remember at the start we spoke about $1 per kilometre driven was the general rule. For us spending that amount of money at $714 a week, 33,000 kilometres covered, it's cost us $1.10 per kilometre that we've driven. That's
pretty good.
That's not too bad. Yep, that's not too bad.
Considering all the increases in prices.
Yes, definitely. And the other thing obviously is what was our total spend? How much money have we spent altogether? So this is including all of our insurances, car regos, services, the whole lot.
Yep, so $42,728.
Dollars? How much was that per week?
Yeah, dollars. So per week, so $837 per week.
That's not too bad, because remember at the start we spoke about the zero line for us was going to be 12 grand. And just having a quick look, because we've serviced both vehicles twice this year. We've had regos, we've had insurance. That means we've spent about $6,000, just over $6,000 on those. So we still got a little bit of money in that kick, which was to cover our things like tyres and the oh crap moment and all that sort of stuff. So I think we're pretty much on target for that.
We are on target, and I think it's a more realistic figure for you when you're doing your budget, because every time I researched, everyone excluded all those sorts of things.
They certainly did.
And I didn't think it gave you a good estimate, really.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing too is that our cents per kilometre jumped up to $1.29 per kilometre. So there's been an increase of 19 cents, only 19 cents, but the increase over the period of the year was almost $7,000 just for that 19 cents per kilometre extra. So any money saving that you can make, this can be spent in better ways when you're on the road.
Which is correct. It's better, as I keep saying, it's always better in your pocket than someone else's pocket.
It certainly is.
For you to enjoy it.
All right, well, we hope that you enjoyed today's episode and you got a lot out of it. We tried to put as much information as we could into it based on our experience of living on the road for a year now.
Yes, I hope it's been of some help to you.
My final big tip is do not sell your house if you're going to go onto the road, if you can afford not to do so, because it always gives you somewhere to come back to. And if you are paying off that house, someone else is going to pay your mortgage for you for a while. You don't have to think about it.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. All right, so if you have any comments or questions on today's show about budgets, please hit us up in the comment section. We're more than happy to answer all of those questions for you. If you like today's episode, give us a like and maybe consider sharing it with a friend who's planning to do their travel.
Yes.
And finally, if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, please consider subscribing. It does help our channel grow. Big shout out to all our subscribers. We're so happy to have so many people who follow our channel. We're absolutely amazed and humbled at the same time.
Yeah, it is quite amazing, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. You have yourselves a great week, and we'll see you next Saturday at 9 o'clock. Bye bye.
See you next week.